Coaches across the country used the Coachpad this past season to be more efficient with their scout card prep on the weekends as well as when out on the practice field working with their scout teams. Whether you're a coach using a computer program to create cards or drawing them by hand, the Coachpad is for you. Never printing paper or stuffing a binder, clearly seeing scout cards outdoors in the bright sun, and using the coach pad on game days, syncing diagrams from the press box to the sideline were some of the features coaches enjoyed this season. This offseason, get your coach pad at thecoachpad.com to get your program ready for next season. Thecoachpad.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Downbacker podcast. We have my former boss today, semi-retired, not fully, but semi, at least currently. Former longtime head coach, Coach BJ Queen. Coach, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing good. It was good catching up. I mean, for the past 30, 40 minutes, whatever it's been. Before we get into our topic today, which will be some split back and then a couple other things. I mean, kind of I know a lot of your background, but I mean, for the people who don't know you, what is kind of your background in coaching and kind of where have you been?
Sure. So I was lucky enough to be a student assistant at Mount Union College back in 1997, 1998. Won the national championship 2 and 3 with them there. From there, I went to Watkins Memorial, which is my alma mater, coached and taught for 10 years. Got first head coaching job at Pandora Gilboa, which is where I started running the split back veer. Been the head coach at Upper Sandusky, Fairfield Christian, Grove City Christian. Let's see here, Beechcroft, and West High School in Mifflin. So I've been around.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we worked together at Fairfield Christian, and like I said, I slept on your couch for a while to mitigate the drive. So it's been good. Like I said, we talked families beforehand, and let's start with this because I mean, before I get to the split back, like I mean, you are a big wing T guy, though. I would define like my wing T. The basis of my wing T knowledge comes from you. My understanding of how to actually run jet sweep comes from you. So why, as a wing T guy, and you might not like that title, but have you run split back veer on occasion? Like, I mean, you ran it at Mifflin, I believe at Fairbanks, and there's a couple other times, and you've had experience with it and coaching against it. Why the split back veer instead of your normal, say, jet sweep stuff?
So I guess I learned wing T because I was having frustrations and issues with split back veer. And so I learned that from Jason Peters at Grandview. We had some great years with it. Started off as a spread guy. Like I said, come out of Mount when I, thought I was, be a spread guy. Did that at Reynoldsburg. And, the story goes that we're playing Hillard Davison, coached by Brian White, the year before they won the state title. It's a tight game, and up in the box, they're controlling the ball so well that, like, with 6 minutes to go, it's 3rd and long, and I'm trying to decide whether to go conservative or go, to get the first down. And over the headset, I asked the guys, I'm like, hey, are we going to get the ball back again? And it went dead silent, and they said, no, we don't think we're going to get the ball back again. And so, for it to dictate the game, dictate what it was doing to us, dictate my playing calling, really was impressed with that. So the next year, when I got my first head coach job at Pandora Gilboa, decided we need to be split back veer. And I guess to go back a little bit farther than that, I was comfortable with the option in high school at Watkins Memorial. We ran a combination of like wishbone and flexbone option. At that time, when I graduated, Watkins Memorial was the 3rd most successful football program in Central Ohio, with Newark Catholic being 1 and West Jeff being 2. I believe my class still holds the record for most points scored and most yards. So something obviously, believe in. So it didn't, it was easy to go back and do split back stuff. It also helps that, while at Mount Union, back in the day, Mount Union's offense under Larry Harris was, I think built off of split back. Ken Wable, before the head coach before Larry Harris, was a split back coach. Larry Harris was a split back quarterback. And so you could see all the passing concepts were, based off, they started off as split back, went to West Coast. But I mean, you could definitely see shades of it being there. We lined up split back at Mount when I was there in 96, 97, I would say 70-80% of the time.
Well, yeah, like the split back formation is like almost a basis of the original West Coast too. Like you look at a lot of the old West Coast stuff, like you can see kind of where they derive that from, and it's a little different. And I think, as we mentioned beforehand, like oddly, like when I look at things, for some reason, despite the flex bone having four eligible receivers like immediately on the line, and the most of the split back only having three, like it still throws a lot better for like you watch some of this old Houston Veer stuff and they're throwing the ball a bunch. Like it's not just running just Veer up and down the field. So
So something I learned from Coach Karras is you've got to have that balance. You've got, of run and pass, and also protection. Keeping. I know everybody wants to put four receivers out and throw the ball, but you got to be able to keep two backs in and protect sometimes. The play action, I think I think the play action is better than what you get, say, off the wing tee, waggle. I would say waggle is the number one pass play in the world. But your run stuff has to look like your pass stuff and vice versa. And I think you get that with two backs in the backfield better.
okay. Now obviously with split back Veer, you run Veer. I mean that's inside outside Veer. Like that's what else did you run out of your split back stuff?
Sure. So something I like about split back veer is this, to get into philosophy, I guess first thing, you're going to have to be comfortable with a small playbook, and it's funny, as I start writing things down, it can expand. I've got inside veer, outside veer, lead, speed option, quarterback follow, midline, counter tray, wedge, trap, flip, which is essentially helps get you to like a jet look, a cut back play, and a dive. So I mean, the play. So as I say, it can be small. The nice thing is it starting off, you can be small, and then you can expand off of it onto how long your kids have been in the program, and what your kids can do. Trying to think with that. Remind me, what's the original question?
Just kind of, just you're good, what you just what you've chosen to ran out of it. Like obviously, there's 18 billion ways to skin a cat, but just
Yep.
curiosity, what have you run out of it? Just to kind of obviously inside and outside view are the common. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, obvious.
I think you have to then, if I was putting in today, like for install, you gotta have your inside veer, you gotta have your outside veer, your lead speed, your quarterback follow, your midline.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that those are your five first, and then we can counter. You have to add counter tray. So counter tray. So you six. Yeah. You
Yeah,
gotta have 6 run plays.
yeah, and that makes sense. It's I just look at it and I've talked to people and looked at stuff and just kind of what else. I mean, some people really rely on the dive or a variation of like a belly. Um, it's just interesting to see the perspective there. What do
So,
you put in inside or outside veer first?
so I put in inside veer first because, in my opinion, and like I said, if someone can show me an outside veer only works well if they open up the C gap. If there's that like that 3 and that 9, and they have that linebacker sitting in in between, then your outside veer is unstoppable. I mean, you literally don't need to call another play until they change. And the other thing I guess you've got to understand is, if you're gonna, my opinion, if you're gonna run split back veer, you got to let your quarterback call plays at the line almost every play. You can start them off with something, but if there's no reason to run plays into formations, defensive formations, alignments that aren't good for it.
Okay.
So as an example, what you're going to find is this: everybody, and this is like something I guess is frustrating for me, but it's just the way of the world. Like when you go to clinics, they're going to draw up the formation, and they're going to put a one technique, on one side and a three technique on the other, and they're going to run their inside veer to the one technique. And believe me, it's awesome. Like if they stay like that, you don't need to call another play. The problem is defenses aren't going to stay like that. They're going to go double twos on you real fast because they want to make that read hard.
Yeah.
And so listen, inside veer against double twos is not very fun. And so that's where you need to go midline. And you've got to give your quarterback options to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like, and I mean, that's the old thing about like you go to clinics and everybody draws it up against the forefront, and then I mean, yeah, that's great. I mean, we can all do first year coaching stuff, but most teams aren't in a standard even front anymore. They're in odd fronts, or they're
Right.
in, as you said, kind of forefronts that kind of move. Like,
Yeah.
just, I mean, anybody that knows how to defend the option of the wing T aren't just going to stay stagnant in 4-3 defense. They're gonna put an under front out there. They're gonna put bare front. They're gonna put a tight front. They're gonna slant angle people. I mean, hell, I learned slant angling defense from you. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my first introduction to a 3-4, and we just slanted and angled every play and moved our
Right.
guys. So, um, yeah, no one's going to just stay static.
Right. I wish they would. It'd make life a lot easier.
I mean, you wouldn't be surprised with the rule changes always benefiting the offense. At some point, they might just say, "Hey, pre-snap, you have to pick a defense and just stay in it, and
I
just
say all-star rules, right? All-star game
yeah."
rule.
Oh
Yes.
God, don't get me started on all-star rules, and then mitigate, and then reffing all-star rules. Like, because I've worked the state all-star game the past 2 years, and then
Okay.
just listen to very successful head coaches across the state complain the entire time that somebody across the field is breaking the rules is
Right.
just like sweet God. It's an
Yeah,
all-star game.
we're competitive people, right? Yeah.
Yeah. All they are. No, I literally watched I can't remember what's his face up north. I can't remember the school. I literally watched him up 30 in the All-Star game kicking onside kicks because he's just like and part of that was because the other guy wouldn't accept the 30-minute 30-point running clock rule. So he just
Okay. Yeah.
because he got and it just
Right. That's funny.
that's
So
because that's what happens when you're a Division 1 head coach. You are too prideful and you just want to get
right.
oh God. But
But to
go
give a
ahead.
little bit more, I enjoy the history of the split back veer. I always tell kids, like when I talk about like three most important football movies are done with split back veer. It is, Remember the Titans, Run Split Back. We Are Marshall is split back veer, and then When the Game Stands Tall is split back veer. Um, like I said, obviously Coleraine ran split back. I don't know if they still do, but they were a great football program. Hilliard Davison ran split back. I mean, that's kind of like watching the models in Ohio. You know, that's what it is for me.
Yeah, and the other thing is you just don't. I mean, don't see it a lot anymore. But the programs that still run it are
Right.
just like as I mean, you typically don't really see it in the Midwest anymore. It's a very southern thing still. Like
Yes.
Louisiana, particularly for some reason. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but like
They've got the Christian school down there.
yeah,
The
J-
J. Kurtz.
yes, and I was literally watching some of their a game from this year last night, and they're just thrashing this poor little team with inside and outside veer and just driving down the field, and they're just running split back and just going. And then there's like another school called like Arcadia that's in the same area that just
Okay.
does the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm talking to somebody later. He's in from Louisiana. They run like it's a very southern
Mhm.
thing. I
Yeah.
know a coach up in Michigan switching to it this year, but it's like it's not very common, surprisingly.
Yeah. And with split back beer, I think you've got to be comfortable with being boring. The best thing for me is when, you know, I run a play, it's worked well, and I just do this, like, just
I
yeah.
know. Trust me. I've worked for you. I know. I know. I remember just sweet, sweet, yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um, the other thing, so talking which, I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know how it will pick up. Snap Decisions is a book from a high school coach in Michigan, and that's where he talks about letting the kids call the plays at the line of scrimmage. Um, and goes through it. It's a great book, one of the best ones I ever read. And then I don't know anybody is super interested in split back veer is the old Houston,
yep.
playbook. Yeah.
I may or may not have found that in a certain place online, and may or may not have printed that. I'm not going just to look at just the like that. That's also the surprising part. I've done like I'm gonna be honest. I have access to a lot of things because of the podcasting and the clinics and the COVID stuff and all that stuff. He did not do a lot of stuff like filmed clinics or talking about the system. Like it's weird. It's
Oh, that's
like
funny
because
because it was in the era where coaches shared everything. So
yeah,
I guess that surprises me. Where today, like they said, coaches don't want to share things, and maybe that's what it was. I mean, if you read his history and know his history, I mean, he was a failed coach. He was ready to get fired, and by accident, he figured out,
yeah,
um, you know, to read. It's funny. It's very similar to the Rich Rodriguez story in West Virginia, where and honestly, the read option is a, a spinoff or the inverse of the inside veer is by accident it was figured out.
yeah. Like because I was looking at wishbone stuff earlier this off season.
So, like I said, yeah, if you figure something out, if you got something special, I don't know if you're necessarily gonna want to
Yeah,
share.
but because I was reading Emery Ballard's like autobiography, and he came up with the wishbone, and
Mhm.
Houston Veer's mentioned briefly in it. There's some argument who came up with Veer first, him or Billy Yeoman, whatever.
Right,
And but then you can find old clinics by Darrell Roy or Emery Ballard or people who played or coached for him or that wrote books or whatever.
right.
Like the Houston Veer people didn't write books. They
Interesting.
didn't really post anything. They weren't I like unless there's stuff that I don't know about that I can't find. Like there's not much on it, which is kind of weird because it's a very dynamic offense. Like obviously you're inside outside veer. You'll have the hardcore spread people say it's all their hate on it, but like you can throw out of it, you can run out of it, like you hit the edge well.
Well,
It's
and what I'll tell you is, and I think an option in particular in split back veer, it's the most explosive offense out there. And I know the spread guys will go nuts about that. And this is the reason why. It's because they'll put 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. So when you pop,
oh, it's
you're
gone.
off and running. You're off and running. Where in spread, you always play over the top coverage. And so, literally, unless your athlete's just that much better than other athletes, you're dinking and dunking.
100%. Like when I was at Fairborn year 3, we were running the wing T, and we played a team who I actually have put up YouTube shorts of some of the clips on my YouTube channel. Of they would pretty much run like a 7-1 full man coverage diamond. So if you got empty, there's nobody in the middle of the field, and we
Mm-hmm.
just we ran quarterback trap 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 of them were 60-plus-yard touchdowns. The third one was an 8-yard gain, and that's because he got tripped up, like, and there was a small blocking error. Otherwise, that would have gone. Like, to your point, like, people will just pack the line, and if you break it, it's gone. And there's no, and like you, again, I was watching John Curtis, and they're running split back veer, and they are just, I mean, the quarterback kept the ball on like the second play of the game and goes 80 yards because everybody's piled in and they just
Yeah.
take off.
Yeah.
Uh, it's
Yeah.
a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
So when you like, what does the practice look like for you? Like, because I've been through your practices. I know how hands on you are, especially with the backfield. Um, what does a like split back practice look like and working, especially the mesh, the reads, and going through stuff.
Sure. And I think it's probably like for me, once we get to that point, um, within the practice, I mean, it's 10, 15 minutes just running inside running inside veer. You might have 10 minutes with your quarterbacks. It doesn't take as much time as what everybody says. When you say, if you run, triple option, that's all you can do because you got to spend so much time on it. No, I mean, we have enough time. We start, in June and July with our 10 days or whatever it is. You can get it done. And honestly, I think because you don't run very many plays, I guess my philosophy is you can knock practice down faster and possibly get to that point where you can lift at the end, which will make you a better football team and make this offense go even more.
Yeah.
This is power football. What I love about this offense is everything is down, down, down. You have the best. Always have the best angles. Okay, it hits super fast, and you're always going forward. Jerry Cooke, who was my head football coach, one time said, "It's amazing how successful you can be if you just go forward on every play."
We'll come back to Gerald Cook because Gerald Cook is one of my favorite human beings.
Mm.
So we'll come back to that towards the end of this because I love Jerry.
Yeah,
Jerry's been very good to me the past couple of years with the state association and stuff. I love. Actually, I'm supposed to have a phone call with him next week. God bless him. But we'll come back to that. Like, I mean, how many different looks are you given in practice? Because obviously, like we assume how certain people are going to line up, and
yeah.
I mean,
So,
but
so,
it's
so
usually wrong.
that's the challenge because you're option, and so they're going to do something different in high school. It they could be forefront on film, and they could show up to you in 5 front or bear or six,
Yeah.
6 foot, whatever. I mean, it's so you're. I would say day one training as you're coaching your defense, you need to coach different fronts. You need to have a term to put kids in different fronts, and then that way, the the best case scenario would be when you go to option drill, you have a defensive coach that just calls out different fronts every play because and that's what I guess makes it fun for me, and hopefully it makes it fun for the kids. Is they're active participants in the offense. Like I said, if they line up, how they line up is determine what play you're going to call. So they're actively invested in the offense. If like I said, if you got a 3 technique, you've got to teach your tackle, or I'm sorry, your guard, keep stepping out, and see how far he'll go with you.
Yeah.
Okay, make the hole bigger, and start to understand why on the offense that you start to do that. I mean, you're going to have to block the same play different ways depending on what they do. I was just looking at the lead speed, and I'm like, okay, so we can down that, and read the end. I'm like, or like I said, the problem is then if your overhang is inside of your slot, that causes a problem because your slot can't block it. I'm like, or you can take the tackle, you can block on and block on, and then run it a different way. So I think with that and teaching your kids, they should get excited because they're making decisions on what on how it's getting run the most effectively, and then if you can get kids to understand why, now you can really be rolling.
Yeah, and just like I mean, the manipulation, like high school kids don't realize until a coach tells them that this tackle is now at 3 yards width, and they've walked all the way out with them, and they've just opened the floodgates. I mean, is your base splits at 3 feet, or where did you start? And
Yeah, and that's probably from what I learned in high school. I mean, you wanted to be a yard, and then adjust it down to, again, adjust to where they're lining up on you, and what the play is,
okay.
you know.
And then are your
But
backs directly behind the guards, or because
so
I've seen some
here's
different
here's
alignments with that.
here's the dirty little trick. Okay, move your backs to where it's best for them to hit the hole. You can't see it on film. Like as an example, like so for me, just when I was at Mifflin, I'd had them call like 9 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and honestly, they're telling the quarterback like where their path is, and so if it was a one technique, they're calling 9 o'clock, and they're getting a little bit wider, so they're getting to say the outside shoulder of the guard, so then that way they can hit that B gap, you know, that much faster. Where if it's a two technique, they're going to call 12 o'clock and they're going to move and step almost to the fullback position. So almost like what you've got in your gap down backer, look, is so then that way now we're running midline and it's a straighter, faster path.
Yeah.
And by moving, and then also passing, if they're getting out in the flat, we can get them a little wider. If we're running different things like trap, you can, and again, those things just aren't seen on film. People just don't pay attention to it. And so you can manipulate that a little bit.
Well, even if you catch it, like you got to be able to react to it and understand what. And let's be honest, most high school kids don't.
Right.
I'd say 60 to 70% of high school kids don't invest the time in scouting reports like they should. That would make
No,
them
yeah.
even more effective. Like because and the other point of this is I forget who I was talking to the other day, and we were just having a conversation about option football and um in general. And like you watch Air Force, they give away what they're running. Like they don't care. Like they will adjust their running backs and their wings to what, and like you can narrow it down to probably two plays and they don't care. Like you can watch all the film you want. Like we're going to adjust our alignment so it fits the play the best and we're going to go. We don't care.
Yeah. And you've got to have that philosophy, both as a coach, and then you've got to kind of push that onto the kids, because you're going to get, hey, we're not, we keep running the same play. They're calling out our play. Well, good. Can they stop it? And then, the magic of the option is this, can they stop it? If they're struggling to stop it, they're going to start to cheat. And then when they cheat, now the option goes to the next guy and we're off to the races.
That or you run counter back the other side when they've overloaded and there's nobody there. Like it's
Right.
yeah, it's just okay. Like I said, that's my biggest questions. Like, I mean, I've coached long enough, and so have you. Like, teaching a kid to read a player is not. I mean, that's pretty elementary at this point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the little details. Like, okay, how do you line? What's your path? Those are the things, and like and then there's obviously more advanced things, which I'm not even gonna worry about right now. Like I was scrolling through Twitter and they're in like it was Houston or somebody in like the 80s was running like spinner trap option out of the split back. And I'm like, that's great. That's stuff you run like year like 6 in the offense when your middle schools run it for years, and that's beautiful. Like awesome. Like the spinner stuff is cute, but it's not like that's not everyday high school life. I'm sorry. Like it's
Right. 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 Yeah.
why do you think, I mean, obviously the spread is a big part of it, but why do you think more option and wing T teams don't run the split back veer? I mean, because you are a big history buff when it comes to like, I remember listening to you our first meeting talking about the history of the wing T and jet sweep, and just, I mean, you are always a big history guy. Why do you think this is kind of um, died down compared to um, the flex bone or the spread?
Well, I think because not as many kids touch the ball, I think you have to have a quarterback that can do it. Um, it's also it's old school tough football, and I think you have to embrace old school tough football to be able to do it. It's also it can be boring football. You got to be patient. Like the old remember the Titans quote is it's like Novocaine. Give it time, it will work. You've got to give it time. You've got to give it time. You got to it's the again. And I guess you don't know when it's going to be exciting. Like we talked about, when you run the spread, like big plays happen because you scheme and you beat the scheme, or your superior athlete has beat their superior athlete. In this, I mean, it's amazing how many times I've just called veer for the fourth time in a row, and expecting to get a 2-yard gain, and it pops and goes. It's so I guess the predictability of like, or I guess not even predictability, but like you can't want the big play. You just gotta let the big play happen.
Yeah. Now, the other interesting thing I think you mentioned when we were talking beforehand, and obviously you've coached when we first met, we were private school, um, and you, I think, midway through that guy job teaching in Columbus Public, and eventually moved to Columbus Public to be a coach and a teacher. And you ran this at Mifflin, which is not necessarily the easiest place to run anything at, just because numbers are always a struggle. I think you had 17 kids the 1 year you were there. How did, I mean, the option work in the city, and with such a small roster, why do you think it kept you at least competitive for at least half? Like when you have 17 kids going against 40, it is what it is at that point. But um, most of the time, how do you think that helped you, and kind of how do you think the option worked overall?
Okay, so and I guess I want to go back real fast and just add. So I think the other issue that you have with Splitback is this: like everybody else, everybody wants to be college, wants to aspire to become a college or pro football player. Everybody in college and pro are in
Mhm.
shotgun now, and so like I can remember at Mifflin, like I guess criticism I got is like, we don't want to run an academy offense. We don't want to be an academy, you know. And so you've got to show people why this can be advantageous. Um, what it does for you is this: it puts you in. I truly believe split back veer puts you in opportunities to win ball games that you couldn't win otherwise. Again, helps you control the clock, helps you control the tempo of the game, helps you slow down the game or actually speed it up. Okay, so if you have small numbers or your kids don't wear out as fast, so you can hang in there longer. It keeps the other team off the field. Um, like with my history, probably some of my bigger games I've ever won were with split back veer. As a first year coach at Pandora Gilboa, coming to a program that was 0-10, hadn't beat their rival Columbus Grove, which is a week one game, in 10 years. And being able to come in, we were able to beat them in overtime, as my first win is as a head coach, my first game as a head coach. That sold me there. When I was at Upper Sandusky, I played a Cyrus team that had beat them the year before by 50 points, and we beat them. Beat a Galleon team that was unbelievably talented. So yeah, I guess run split back veer because you will, you'll steal some games. You'll beat people that maybe you probably shouldn't have when you look at the talent. If you went to the draft and we're picking kids, probably a lot more of the kids would get picked before yours, but you can still win, and that's a great feeling.
Okay.
We beat my second year at Pandora Gilboa. We were 0-3 playing 3-0 Arcadia, who had just beat Hard Northern, which is a big deal. And we're ranked. I want to say they were ranked like 4th in the state, and beat them. And so, I guess that's my testament to the split back veer.
Yeah, I get it. And then I do have one more question, like, because I've taken this with me, and I think it still holds fairly true. Like when I look at numbers, I mean, you've always been a big proponent of the weight room, and your rule was for every 1,000 pound clubber equals a win. Do you still hold true to that statement to this day?
Pretty close. I would say it's like 0.7 or 0.8.
Okay. Like I
Yeah.
said, because I no, I've sort of tracked it, and it's been like I didn't check it this year, but when I was at Northwestern, and even kind of as I ballparked at Fairborn as an assistant, it was fairly
It's close
yeah
enough to believe
yeah
in, right?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
like yeah. I mean I don't think it's probably not 100% true, but it is pretty dang close. I mean even at Elgin, I mean you came up and scrimmaged us when I moved to Elgin. And I mean, we had that second year, and we had some dudes that were in the 1,000 pound club in physical, and you kind of saw it. And I said, it's an interesting stat And then last thing is do you have any good Jerry Cook stories? Because I love Jerry Cook to death. Jerry Cook is, again, he's been very good to me. And like Jerry is a great human being, and like I said, as somebody who played for him, just kind of your perspective.
So what I'd say about Jerry Cook is I don't think you can find a better high school football coach. Like I said, and all the time I've been with Jerry, I've never, so what I, all the way through high school and then 10 years coaching with him, never seen Jerry cuss in front of a kid. He's always professional. He's always got the kids' heart, best interest in mind, and just loves the game of football. So to me, he's the ultimate high school football coach.
For people wondering who Jerry Cook is, that isn't in Ohio. He is the executive director of our state association. Essentially runs our state clinic. Um, I mean, the man has coached for God, I don't even know how long at this point. Recently put in our Hall of Fame. Still coaches at Granville, in some capacity. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't say enough good things about the man. So coaches, like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz.
One
Um,
more, if I got to share another great Jerry
yeah,
Cook
good.
story. And so I guess when I was in school, and for Jerry Cook is Jerry Cook would show up at all the sporting events. Like the band kids would go to their band competitions, and Jerry would be there watching them. So invested in all the kids.
Oh yeah, no, like it's amazing. Like when he had his Hall of Fame ceremony, there's a bunch of people who didn't even play football that were there. Like it's not
Yeah,
just. I mean, he still gets Watkins loves him to death. He still gets a bunch of kids every year to help volunteer hours with the state clinic and doing some stuff, so the kids get volunteer hours, and like it's just amazing how he treats people and what he does. He takes care of everybody, and kids love him. And you just see that when you go to the coaches association, all these people who've either coached with them or played for them to this day that just say positive things about him. And I don't know a person in our association board that doesn't like Jerry. I mean, hell, we
right.
named we named renamed an award last year after him. Uh, I mean, that's
Deserving so. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. So coaches, like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. Do you have? I don't even know. Do you even have a Twitter? I don't even know if you do.
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
I mean, you could find Coach on Facebook if you want to talk to him more. I mean, the man is running about everything, and um, I mean, Coach Queen. Again, I work for Coach Queen, um, and nothing but always appreciative. And other than that, like, share, subscribe, and that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.